Hi, and welcome to the third grade math curriculum update. I'm Sherry Height. My extension is 28705, and my email is slheight@mesquiteisd.org. I'm here for any questions you have. Feel free to email me or call me, and I will get back to you very quickly. So, this week we're talking about the content for the week of September 19th. And what we wanted to do is start with the pre-planning. So what we should be doing every week before we go to our PLCs. Okay, and we just kind of want to show you what that looks like and then go over the different strategies that are coming up in the curriculum for the week of September 19th. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start off with the TEK 3.4a. We have two TEKs coming up next week. This one is a readiness standard, which means it could be tested multiple times, 1 to 2 times. Any readiness standard can be tested that many times, and our supporting are tested 0 to 1 time. So this is a heavy hitter for us in third grade, and we've been working on it for quite a while, haven't we? So the TEK reads, solve with fluency one-step and two-step problems involving addition and subtraction within 1,000 using strategies based on place value, properties of operations, and the relationship between addition and subtraction. Now notice it doesn't say that we have to have the students memorize the properties of operations. We're just using those things, place values, properties, and the relationship between addition and subtraction. So I thought I'd start off with showing you the 2 items that were on the 2022 test that are over this TEK 3.4a. You can see number 17, we were at 51%. The problem reads, a movie theater has 710 seats. 158 of the seats were red, 247 seats are black, 119 seats are yellow. The rest of the seats are green. How many seats are green? So as you can see, this is a multi-step problem. We have to add the red, the black, the yellow seats, and then subtract those from the 710 total seats that are in the theater to find out the rest of the seats that were green. So that's multi-step. And then number 32, we were at 62% for Mesquite ISD, and it says at the beginning of September, Mr. Watkins had 543 erasers. During September, he gave his students 99 of the erasers. During October, he gave his students 212 of the erasers. How many erasers did Mr. Watkins have at the end of October? So again, you'll notice we have to add the erasers that he gave away and then subtract from the total number of erasers that Mr. Watkins had. So again, we have a multi-step where we have to add and subtract. So both of last year's questions were multi-step where the students had to add and subtract within the same problem. So that tells us quite a bit, doesn't it? That tells us that when we're doing problems, we need to make sure that we have multi-step in there. If we don't practice any multi-step problems, we're going to be out of luck when it comes to the testing. So we've got to have some thinking involved that goes with two-step problems, adding and subtract. And those 2 problems were in 2022, but let's not forget 2019 and 2017, we had 2 more problems that were add and subtract both. One is talking about Samantha, Gordon, and Diego going on a picnic and bringing an ice chest. And the weight of Samantha's was 83 pounds. The weight of Gordon's ice chest was 28 pounds. And the weight of Diego's ice chest was 37 pounds. What was the difference in pounds between the weight of Samantha's ice chest and the combined weight of Gordon and Diego's ice chests? So we have to put Diego's and Gordon's ice chest pounds together. So add, and then we have to subtract to find the difference between the weight of their ice chest and Samantha's ice chest, okay? And that problem is one that you will see time and time again come up where we have to find the difference between 2 combined things and one other option, okay? So we need to talk about difference, because that's academic vocabulary, with the idea of comparison. Whenever we're comparing things, we're finding the difference, okay? When we're finding the difference, we're comparing two things. For example, when we're trying to find the difference in the number of boys and girls we have in our class, we wouldn't put those together. That would give us the total number of students in our class. But if we're trying to compare and find the difference in the number of boys and girls in our class, that would have us subtract. Now, we can't just go, hey, look for difference. It always means subtract, because as you notice in this problem, you had to do both add and subtract. So we don't want to teach it like a key word, but we do want to talk about that academic vocabulary and the actions that go with it, okay? In 2017, we had Erica's goal was to practice playing her guitar for 300 minutes in a week. And on Sunday, she practiced for 117 minutes. And on Tuesday, she practiced for 58 minutes. How many more minutes did Erica need to practice in order to meet her goal? So again, we have to add the number of minutes she's already practiced and subtract those from 300. Well, things that I notice about this problem are, I'm going to have to subtract across zeros. So I need to make sure and talk about that and practice some of that. But also I'm looking at these two items, 117 and 58. I'm noticing the place values are different. So we need to talk about lining up our numbers correctly in place value. Also, on the 2019 question, don't forget that this was a griddable. Now it's going to be a text entry, so we actually have to have our students practice typing the answers, okay? So don't forget that. And then here's another two-step add and subtract from 2016. You'll notice this is very similar to the 2019 question. I was telling you it's been tested that way more than once. So whenever you're looking at the IQ released items before you plan, those are the things I want you to notice. I want you to notice patterns. So in this one, how many more miles did Wanda travel in January and April combined than she traveled in September? So we have to add January and April, and then we have to find the difference between that sum and how many miles that Wanda traveled in September, okay? So again, it's kind of that same type of problem. And then we also notice the word difference. What I did here is I put all the add and subtract two-step problems together so that I could see, oh my goodness, 5 times it's been asked as two-step add and subtract. That's another thing that I want you looking for before you plan. Okay, that'll be very helpful for you in your planning. You'll notice you'll see some of these types of questions, if not these exact questions, in the curriculum. Okay, so now I went on to the subtraction only questions for the TEAC 3.4a. So in 2021, the question said there are 2 lions at the zoo. The weight of the younger lion was 379 pounds, and the weight of the older lion was 514 pounds. What is the difference in pounds between those two weights? Again, we're comparing two things. We're comparing two weights, and that tells us we're subtracting, and also thinking about, okay, we're subtracting, we're comparing. This looks like it's only a one-step problem. So keep that in mind as we look at the next one. In 2018, there are 297 peach trees on a farm. There are 615 peach trees on a different farm. What is the difference between the numbers of peach trees on these farms? Again, we're seeing that word difference all over the place, so we've got to hit that in our academic vocabulary. We want the students saying the word difference as well and talking about, oh, that means we're comparing two things, so we would subtract that, okay? And then let's look at the 2016. Mr. Thompson sold 247 meals on Tuesday at his restaurant. He sold 516 meals on Wednesday. What is the difference between the number of meals Mr. Thompson sold on these 2 days? So again, we have that word of difference. But I want you to think about this. What else did you notice in all 3 of those problems? And I'll be honest, I don't think I noticed this the first year that I did this. But one of the reasons we want you solving each one of these problems is so that you can look for, where might a 3rd grader make a mistake? And so after solving them, one thing I noticed is on all 3 of these questions, they put the lower number first in the word problem and then the higher number. And so I'm thinking 3rd graders, they see the first number. If they write it first, are they going to get the correct answer? They're going to be really confused because we're not into negative numbers yet, so we can't take 516 away from 247. So this is where we can have a talk about in third grade, since we don't do negative numbers yet, we actually have to put the higher number on top, okay? That's not always. When you get older, you're going to go into negative numbers and you won't have to do that always. But in this question, when we're trying to find the difference between these two, we need to put the higher number on top. Okay. Another way that 3.4a is tested is adding multiple numbers. So we saw that we had 3 one-step subtraction problems. Now we're on to what is the total number of tickets the theater sold for these 3 movies. So we're having to add all 3 numbers. And we want to talk about with students, there's more than one way to solve a problem. You can add the first 2 numbers and get that sum, but don't forget to add the third number. Make sure when it asks for 3 movies, you've added 3 numbers, okay? And so in this question, looking at this one where we're trying to find out how much she paid for her guitar lessons for these 3 months, where do you think third graders might get a little confused? Perhaps the place values are different. Look at April, it goes to the hundreds place, and the other 2 only go to the tens place. So this might be a conversation where we want to make sure we line up those numbers. Remember, you can use graph paper, grid paper. They can use it on STAR, they can use it on DCPs to show their work. And so you might want to have them start with 156 and then write 90 and 78, but making sure those ones places and those tens places are lined up. Okay, and here's another one. This one doesn't have a table and it doesn't have bulleted information. It just has all the numbers in the word problem. Addison started with $87 in a bank account. She put $213 in her account last week and another $137 in this week. What's the total amount Addison now has in her bank account? So again, the place values are different because of that 87. Also, it was a grid, so now that would be, we have to type the answers. And so I know for third graders, that's something new, right? To type in an answer. So practicing that sometimes on your Google Slides. So here's the big deal. This is what we want you to do before planning. Read and solve. Read and solve. Don't just read. Solve all IQ release questions. Look for patterns. That's what we talked about. Look for things that are similar amongst the question, and then look at how often it's tested. On your lesson page, there's a little place that says what it looks like on STAR, and there it is. You just click that link and it takes you to Lead Forward. Now, right now, of course, as I'm recording this video, Lead Forward has taken them down. I think they're adding the 2022 released items, so they're changing them a bit. So we have put in our Google Classroom all of the third grade test questions so far, except for 2022. So you can look at those PDFs in there. If you're not on the Google Classroom, you need to be. Every once in a while, something will come up and I'll be like, hey, guess what's on the DCP this time? I want you to start practicing drag and drop because that's going to be on the DCP. I'm not going to give you homework. I'm just going to give you important information that you need. And this presentation will be linked there too, in case that you need that. So the very first page, slheight@mesquiteisd.org. If you will send me an email, if you're not on our Google Classroom, I will invite you and add you to it. Okay, so our first lesson that's coming up on the week of the 19th is adding with the standard algorithm. And what I wanted to show you is that in the curriculum, if it looks like STAR or it's an actual STAR release question, I put a star beside it. And that means if you're having to choose between so many slides because we've given you so many problems and you can't get to them all, that's absolutely okay. We want to have enough for you to have in there, but we don't necessarily think that you're going to get to every single question. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So if it's something really important that we really don't want you to skip, because it's like a released item or it is a released item, we put a star by it, okay? So like this question is actually from your textbook, and we just added a little piece to it. We added the model of drawing a strip diagram and then solving. So this is asking how many soup can labels did grade 2, 3, and 4 collect? Well, look at this. Grade 2, 3, and 4. Oh, we're adding 3 numbers. What does that look like that we just saw in planning? And in the strip diagram, you would type in or write in grades 2 collected 294, grade 3 collected 479, and grade 4 collected 564. And then this would be a question mark because we're looking for our total. And when we're looking for our total and we have all the parts, that means that we're going to add. And look at this, type your answer here. So we've got that practice that used to be a grid, but now it's typing. So we try in our curriculum to put everything that you need in there. Sometimes it's on a Google slide, sometimes it's not. Feel free to take the slides also and not use them as slides. Use them as problems and use dry erase boards or any fun lead forward strategies. Okay, and so after that lesson, we're going to start working on subtraction because we really haven't worked on that yet, have we? And we're going to work on subtracting on an open number line. So I want you thinking like number talks. We want our kids to mentally be able to subtract or count up to add to find this answer without even having to do any work. No regrouping, yay! So we're going to show them multiple ways, and this is one of the ways. So 58 minus 39, if I'm counting up, I'm going to start at 39, and I'm going to try to find an easy number. 40 has a 0 on the end, so to me that's an easy number. So I'm going to count up 1, and that gets me to 40. And then I can count up 10, real easy, to get me to 50, another easy number. And then all I have to do is go up 8 more to get me to 58. Once I've done all that, the jumps that I took, I just add those together. 10 plus 8 is 18, plus 1 more is 19. So the difference between 58 and 39 is 19. It's as simple as that. Now, these slides and practices are in your Google Slides for that day. They also have some where all of this is not there, and the students are going to have to practice that and do that on their own. And some of them are going to look different. Some of them might jump by 1s or 5s. Some might jump by 10s. Some might break up those 8s to 4 and 4, whatever they need to do to make it work. But our goal here is that kids can quickly and mentally subtract by counting up. Okay. Another thing that we're going to practice next week is subtracting with base 10 blocks. I was like, oh my gosh, I think my video is gone. So, but before we start on that, what I wanted you to know is that in our slides, you may have noticed on slide 2, every time just about, there's a video on how to teach it. This video is in there for you as the teacher so that you know how to guide students into subtracting with base 10 blocks or subtracting by counting up, whatever the case may be. Because I don't know about you, but I didn't learn this way. I learned by just doing exactly what my teacher said. Cross this number out, make it a 1, bring over this one over here. Well, that's not even correct. What we're doing is we're regrouping for a 10, okay? And so what we want students to do is to understand conceptually why we're crossing out something and regrouping that 10. We want to understand the why behind it. They actually learned this in 2nd grade last year, so this should not be anything new, but it may be new for you. So this video, you can pause it, you can rewind it. That's why we put the videos in here. So we're going to watch this quick little video to see how to subtract with base 10 blocks.
Do you know what 3 minus 1 is? That's right, the answer is 2. Have you ever wondered how to solve subtraction equations that have larger numbers? Let's find out. Let's solve the equation 45 minus 17. To start, let's line up the equation vertically so that the 10s are on the left and the 1s are on the right. We can use base 10 blocks to help us solve this equation. We have 4 rods and 5 units. This is the same as 45. We need to take 17 away from 45. Let's start by subtracting the ones. We need to take 7 away from 5. Uh-oh, there are only 5 blocks, so we can't take 7 blocks away. This means we will have to regroup to make a larger number in the ones place. To do this, we can take one of the rods and break it into 10 units. Now there are 15 units in the ones place. We have to change the 5 to 15. Now we can take 7 away from 15. There are 8 left. We write the number 8 in the ones place of the answer. Now we can subtract the numbers in the tens place. Since we moved a rod over to the ones place, we only have 3 rods left. We need to change this in our equation. Now we can subtract the tens. 3 minus 1 equals 2. We write the number 2 in the tens place of the answer. We have 2 rods and 8 units. This makes the number 28. 45 minus 17 equals 28. You took action to solve a subtraction equation.
Okay, you may have noticed that she called them rods and units instead of tens and ones. And the reason she's doing this is because when we get to 4th grade and we go to decimals, these actually change to tenths and hundredths. And then our flat becomes our 1. And so she calls them longs and units, but every once in a while she's going to call them tens and ones because we do have 2 tens and 8 ones. Once we find our difference, but just something to know. That's why she's calling them flats and longs. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about 3.4c, determine the value of a collection of coins and bills. So this TEK is a supporting standard, which means it's not tested every single year. Sometimes it's tested, sometimes it's not. So when I look at all of the questions for 3.4c, I see that it's been tested in 2017, 2019, and 2021, which if I follow that pattern this spring in 2023, it could be a test question. Now you'll notice on your scope and sequence, we only teach this for 1 day. And some of our kids struggle with that because they can't remember how much a quarter's worth or how much a dime is worth or which one the dime is even. And so it feels like, oh my goodness, we need more time to practice this. So one of the things we've put in your lesson page is once you start this, to put this in your spiraling review every day for at least a month, and then come back and hit it again from time to time. You'll notice I only did your spiraling reviews for like the first 9 weeks. And then after that, we want you using your CFA data, your DCP data, to find the questions that you need repetition on to put in your Give Me 5, if that's what you use. Some of you use your daily TEKS review. Some of you use TEKS Target. That's a really great one. So for TEKS Target, you could pull out all the money questions from every week and just hit that every day if you wanted to help spiral this back in, right? Or you're going to hit it every other week anyway because you hit every TEK every 2 weeks. So totally up to you. Sometimes that repetition of let's do it every day for 5 days, they start to get it, and that way they don't forget how much a quarter is worth. So when we look at this 2021 question, the first thing I notice is that even the coins are worth more than $1. So I have to make sure and think, okay, we need to practice counting coins that add up to more than $1, right? And I want my students to know anytime they see 4 quarters, that's $1 right there, okay? Much harder than the 2019 question. Look at that. So we were a little bit blown away in 2021. I'm not gonna lie. We did not do as well on 2021's question as we did on 2019's. And then 2017, look at this question. Woo. So they have to count up the bills and the coins for all 4 answer choices, and look, it's a not question. So all of them are going to add up to $6.47 except for one. I can see this type question being on Star this year and being a multi-select, where they have to choose the 2 that are $6.47. So basically, that's everything for the week of the 19th of September. We're not going to spend as much time on 3.4C as we are on 3.4A. And then the next week, you'll notice that we continue some of the number line and place value blocks and then get into the standard algorithm with 2-digit, and then we add 3-digit into it also, because our TEK says up to 1,000. Okay. If you have any questions at all, feel free to send me an email at slheight@mesquiteisd.org or give me a call at 28705. Thanks so much and have a great week.
Thank you so much for watching this video on the 3rd grade content coming up on the week of September 19th. Before we let you go, please fill out our survey using the link or the QR code provided, and that will let us know that you watched and help us serve you better in future videos. Thank you again so much, and please feel free to reach out to Sherry Height or myself, Ryan Castle, for any questions you might have on the upcoming content.